Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for being here. First item up is the approval of the previous minutes from the September meeting. Can I get a first and a second on the minutes? Okay. All right, thank you very much. That passes. Anything additions to the agenda in front of you? I know it's not a real big agenda. Anything else we need to talk about that we didn't get on here? Okay, Tom. Do you have anything to talk about?
Not too much to report. Year to date, the number of boat registrations was about 550 over prior year, with the majority of those increases in kayaks, all non-motorized kayaks, supboards, canoes, those types of things. Activity cards were up about 1,900 over prior year, so a lot of activity going on. Right now, the crew is working on the 23 budget. So that's occupying a lot of our time. We're very pleased from the results from last week's assessment increase campaign. That was approved. 52.71 were in favor. So that'll keep all of our fees the same for 3 more years, which is outstanding. 52.71. Yeah. The quorum, so we had to reach a quorum of 50%, and we got a quorum of 50.5. So we dripped over the line about an hour or 2 hours before the meeting. So I was really nervous whether we were going to make it or not. But of those who voted, 52.71 voted in favor. So that's real good. In 2020, I think it was 53.5 voted in favor. I could be off on that. So pretty similar, but definitely was much harder to get the vote out this time than last time. A lot of indifference it's when I was talking to a lot of people, it's $3, who cares, and they would forget to vote. So we're very pleased that we'll have the same fee schedule for 3 more years. That's it, and that's all I had to cover.
So interesting question. You said the increase in kayaks and user visitor cards and activity cards. Can you determine if that's driven because of a population increase or because of the current residents being more active and doing more things?
We don't track the information to that level of detail. With that being said, is each quarter we have a new residents meeting where approximately between 80 and 100 new residents will come out. The mayor and myself will both speak about Bella Vista. And this last one, I asked how many people had an activity card, and it was almost 100%. So clearly, if you're a new resident, you're excited, you're going to get an activity card. Does that translate into boat registrations or kayaks? I'm not certain. I just think you're seeing more. We have the demo days, which gets the word out, and I think it's maybe indicative of the changing demographics in our community. I'm really guessing.
Right.
We don't specifically track that information.
Just curious. Okay, any other questions for Tom before we move on? Okay, board member comments? Nobody has anything to say there? Okay. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Rick.
All right, we've had a lot going on, especially in the last couple weeks. Just to review, the Lake Avalon drawdown for this fall. That will begin on November the 14th. The goal is 3 inches a day. We should be down by early December and begin allowing the lake to refill on March the 6th. During that time, we'll be removing some leaf pack and silt material from the beach cove. We'll be removing a gravel bar, which is adjacent to the boat ramp. And we actually, this week, we had intended to do the concrete work at the base of the spillway, but it's been so dry that we don't have any water leaving the lake right now, and we were able to do that concrete work last week, also at Lake Rayburn, where the it's a different setup there. There's an overflow and then a pipe that comes out, but that area had been fixed with riprap last year. And we just went in and cemented all that riprap together so it would stay in place.
And it looks like they're getting ready to pave the,
They are paving. The prep work was going on yesterday and today, and the word is that they'll be paving tomorrow, and the dam road will be open again Friday morning, if we stay on schedule due to weather.
Question, Rick, that
Yeah.
gravel bar, I notice that happens every time we get these floods.
It
Is there
does.
something you can do to that once the gravel's out to
Not
prevent
really.
that? Or,
It's just a maintenance kind of thing we need to work on, and
okay,
it actually provides an area for people to fish from, and when the beach is not open, people will swim there, that kind of thing. But we can't allow that to go too far out into the lake, because when we draw our lakes down, it's usually around 4 feet. We don't want that to be beyond the reach of what we can grab. So we maintain that every chance we get. So
How do you remove the gravel bar? You go out there with a,
just pull it back with an excavator and then load it onto a
you
truck.
put the machinery in the water, or do you have a
Well,
barge? or-
it'll be on dry land.
Okay,
That area.
because the lake's down.
Because the
right.
lake's down, yeah. So that way we don't have to be permitted to be in the water. So that's the main reason why we wait until a drawdown to do that.
Good.
Our POA Rangers, we had 12 during the peak this summer. By the end of this month, we'll be down to 6 for the winter season. That's up a little bit from previous years. During the month of September, we had 4,030 contacts, removed 161 folks that that weren't members. We had 682 boat contacts and 143 and a quarter hours on the water. And that is a little bit less than August, but quite a bit more than September of last year. So the guys are getting out and talking to people, making contacts. Our grounds maintenance crew reinstalled this isn't really lakes related, but reinstalled the bench that's at the waterfall at Tanya Creek, just downstream from the spillway. That was taken out when that area was reconfigured earlier in the spring, and now that bench is back, making people happy. We have the dock in place there on the Windsor Dam that the fly tires are helping us with. We have the concrete abutment poured, and it will be attached in the coming week or so, and then that will be ready for use. But as of right now, it's not ready for use.
what does it require to anchor that? I was just curious.
So we've got a concrete abutment on shore that is 4 by 5 by about 4 feet, top to bottom, and it's down into the riprap. It was dug down, and then extending out from the dock, it'll be cabled in 2 locations, and then anchors will be in place out in the lake. So it'll be held in place on 3 points. There shouldn't move much at all, but it will be floating.
That's an active area with boats, so that's probably needed.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of children's groups that frequent that area. With Tanya Creek, they get a walk on the nature trail, and there's a couple different stations that they use there, and it usually ends with the fly tires conducting a fishing demonstration and allowing the kids to fish. So that's why it was mainly put in.
you know, we bring up kids from Bentonville, and quite a few of them, we bring them up by the busloads, and we provide them rods and reels. And this last event, boy, the kids just caught a whole bunch of bluegill.
Yeah.
It's really, and the weather turned out perfect.
Yeah, and
So-
Cooper Elementary
Yeah,
also has
Cooper,
an
yeah,
event.
Cooper Elementary also.
Yeah. So, the fall lake cleanup is ongoing. The guys were out today until the weather turned bad. And we're gonna begin construction of a new kayak rack at Tyree in the next couple weeks. Our staffing is full. Just earlier, well, I guess it was late last week, we stocked 8,750 channel catfish on 6 of the 7 lakes. If you remember, we have we spawned some of our own channel catfish, and so they'll be going into Lake Avalon. We've already stocked some there, but the larger ones will be going there too. So just to run down, Lake Ann received 1,038, Brittany 324, Loch Lomond 4,421, Norwood 325, Rayburn 325, and Windsor 2,317. And that's based on the lake size. And those fish were 8 to 11 inches, which for the most part, a fish of that size is beyond the size where predators would take them out. So, also got some good news last week about our trout stocking program on Brittany. If you recall, our permit goes from January to January each year, and we were late getting our approval. We were on time getting our application in, we were late getting our approval. And because of that, we missed 3 stocking events last spring. We're going to make up for that this fall. There'll be 3 stocking events between late October and the first of the year to make up for what we missed in the spring. Lake fertilization and weed control is complete for the year. Our catch basins have all have been poured on the 2 aquaculture ponds at the base of Loch Lomond. They look really good. And Chris Fuller, Monday and Tuesday night, presented our water quality data. We had a little luncheon. You guys got the invitation for the Lakes Committee members and our SECI volunteers. And so he presented that before the lunch out at the gun range. And then last night we had a discussion that the city hosted involving septic tanks and just their functionality, that kind of thing. And Chris presented our water quality data there too. So, and then Trey informed me this morning that he was unable to be here this afternoon, and that he wanted me to pass along that the last day for the marina to operate is this Sunday. It'll be closed for the year after that. That's what I have.
Okay, I had Lake Ann on here, but there's really no updates on Ann, correct?
Yes, as all our lakes are a little low, everything is a little low except for Windsor. Lake Ann is about 8 inches low currently, but that's not, at this point, it's the weather, and we're experiencing the same thing on the other lakes. So it's not causing any problems for people's access to the lake, so just waiting for rain.
Then you had asked earlier about putting the fishing tournament rules on the agenda. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that now, or?
We can.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on what he's covered so far?
So the sinkhole issue is pretty much,
Well,
There is a larger project that's going to need some attention in the years to come, not this next year, but for now, the problem that we had, the acute problem that we had with the sinkhole has been filled, and that part of the project is complete. Yeah. So, actually, we're supposed to have a guest today that wanted to speak to the rules for the tournaments, and it doesn't appear that he's here today. So that might be something else we want to table. We're free to discuss, but if we take up any changes, we may want to do that at the next meeting.
Okay, do you want to just kind of recap what the gist of it is, so we can kind of get into the details and maybe vote on it next meeting or whatever?
Sure. So, many years ago, there was concern that the fishing tournaments were causing damage to the fisheries. People were targeting the larger fish, and in the summer months, it's hard on fish, even when you release them, to be in a live well for as much as 8 hours and then being released. So there was a set of rules that was adopted. Did you print that? Do we have that? There's a set of rules that was adopted, and the main thing that our current anglers are having a problem with is the fact that the tournaments from the middle of June to the middle of September need to be at night. And so if you look at water temperatures, the idea was that nighttime water temperatures would cool a little bit, therefore it would be less stress on fish. But to be honest, when the low temperature in July and August is 75 degrees and the high temperature is 95, there's not a lot of cooling that goes on in the summer. So the gist of what is being proposed is they would like to amend those rules to allow early morning fishing till 11 or noon.
So instead of just having nights.
7 to 7 is what's currently allowed. They would like to go from like 6 a.m. because it's daylight at 6 a.m.
Right.
Maybe 6 a.m. to 11, something like that. So
That's kind of the gist of it.
yes.
And from a temperature standpoint, you're right. I mean, summertime, there's not, you might have a 3-degree maybe, from my experience.
That's only if they're using live well.
No, that's the tournament rules.
Okay. What if you, and this may go into my ignorance of fishing and so forth, so please forgive me, but maybe it's more flexible if they're just doing length and less flexible if they're using live well.
Well, that's something that we should probably consider.
Maybe it's, if the mortality is not bad, if they're just measuring and then putting the fish back immediately, maybe there's no restriction on time.
I was thinking about what these kayak guys do, where they shoot a picture and weigh them and
Yes.
do all that and put the fish back.
And if that can be adopted, that would go a long way towards kind of solving our problem. The culture of fishing tournaments, however, is there's a lot of excitement around the weigh-in. That even people that don't fish the tournaments, will show up for the weigh-in just to see what people bring in, and so that's also a consideration. You can, most of the catch, measure, and release tournaments are based around length. It is possible that they could do that kind of tournament with a weight, but then you would have a designated scale that would have to be open to people who brought in fish, all during that time, which can complicate things. But
Yeah, I mean, looking at what the pro circuits have done, a lot of guys there's a judge on the boat who weighs the fish and records it on an iPad and submits it. And one league, I think you can keep the biggest fish you can keep in some of their tournaments, and you throw back the other 4 if it's a 5-fish tournament and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think we need to look at those options, because obviously a catch and release or release quickly is probably more beneficial, but at the same time,
another point,
you make a valid point.
another point to consider and mull over it until next time is that some tournaments have a penalty for bringing in a dead fish. The idea behind that is good, is that you're going to do everything you can to keep your fish alive. But the downside to that is if you have a large fish that dies, it behooves you to not even turn it in. So what I'm getting at is the release of dead fish that don't even make it to the tournament weigh-in. So just another consideration.
But we
It's
don't
been-
really,
It's
we
been
don't,
2 or 3 years since we've talked about the subject of tournaments, and
yeah.
I just,
Do we have any hard data on, per boat, how many fish, what the mortality rate would be? I mean, do you have any idea what that might be?
you can't know, because a lot of the tournaments talk about 95, 98% live fish being released, which is all true. But a lot of the mortality happens as much as 2 weeks later, because the fish is clanging around inside the box, getting abrasions and things that promote disease setting in later, and so that they can be released and look great, and then still die later. Now, how much of that happens, I don't know. There have been papers that have tried to get good data on that, and I'm not sure that you can really know for sure, because what they end up doing is releasing tournament fish inside of a caged area, but then that caged area is creating an artificial environment that may be detrimental to them also. So teasing out what is kind of difficult.
Is there anything that we can do to, since we have an overabundance of small fish in all of our lakes, and we'd like for fishermen to keep more of those fish, is there anything we can do from a tournament perspective to maybe work on that problem versus that might be mutually beneficial to the tournament guys?
We've talked about tournaments where you just keep fish that are 10 to 12 inches, and they go on ice, and that, there can be a way that you designate a winner. The closest, if your desired goal is a 12-inch fish, and somebody catches 10, 12-inch fish right on the nose, then they win the tournament. The further you deviate from that goal, the worse you do. But people want to catch big fish.
Okay.
Well, you might consider doing something Fly Tires did at our last fishing derby. We give an award for the biggest fish, and we give one for the smallest.
Are these tournaments for POA members, POA member
Yes.
guests? or
Oh,
are they-
so the same rules apply to general boat usage. The boat owner, the boat needs to be registered with the POA, but your guest, your second person on the boat, can be a guest, but they're fishing with a member, so that gives them privileges.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions about fishing tournaments?
My ignorance to the tournaments, are they capped to a certain number of boats?
Yes, the 2 large lakes, Windsor and Loman, are a maximum of 16 boats, and Lake Ann is a maximum of 10. And most of the tournaments prefer to fish Loman and Windsor.
How did you arrive at that number?
That was arrived at prior to my being here. It's been a part of the tournament rules for a long time.
That's a lot of boats on either one of those lakes.
I think everyone that fishes the tournaments would agree that more than that would be too crowded.
I would think so.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's something to think about. We've discussed several different options. It's something to think about, and hopefully that maybe.
Do you have the current rules?
I can go get them. I don't have them
I
in
can
my
I can
possession.
email them to you
Yeah,
to
if you don't mind.
distribute before
Yeah.
the next meeting.
That'd be great. That way everybody can look at them, and we can hopefully come up with some good ideas, so. I don't have a whole lot else on the agenda, other than we usually combine the November and December meeting into one meeting. So does anybody have a preference for what date might work for a combined November, December meeting? Before we move on to guests? So Thanksgiving is the 24th. I guess we could meet the 30th of November or the 7th of December. for
For a November date myself, I'd prefer the, late November.
November 30th. Tom, is that okay with you? Okay. So everybody okay with the 30th then? Let's set the date for Wednesday, November 30th. For the combined November-December meeting. Any other questions before we go to guests? Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns, topics they want to bring up? Okay. Ma'am, do you have anything to say? Would you like to speak? Okay. All right. Anybody else before we adjourn? Going once, going twice. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.